On the outskirts of the village, a humble field stretched toward the horizon. Waru, a lean man with weathered hands and quiet eyes, knelt beside a row of maize. His hands, calloused yet gentle, inspected the brittle stalks with care. His patched clothes and steady movements spoke of a life lived in rhythm with the soil. "Look at him!" Whispering to his crops as if they can hear him, came a mocking voice from the path. Juma, a wealthy trader, strode past, flanked by two younger men. Their laughter cut through the stillness, but Waru didn't react. He straightened slowly, brushing the dirt from his hands, and looked out over his fields. Though his family had long been known for their fertile harvests, Waru's quiet demeanor set him apart in a village that valued ambition and strength. While others sought wealth and recognition, Waru found peace in the soil. The village square buzzed with life. Traders haggled over goods, women laughed as they balanced pots of water on their heads, and children darted around, their laughter echoing in the air. Waru moved through the crowd with a basket of freshly harvested cassava, his steps measured, his gaze focused ahead. "Waru will never be anything more than a farmer," said a young man leaning against a stall. "No dreams, no ambition, just a man with his hands in the dirt." Another voice chimed in. "The soil may feed us, but it doesn't make a man strong. Look at Chief Murioki. That's real strength, power, and pride." Waru paused as the words reached him. His grip on the basket tightened briefly before he adjusted it on his shoulder. He walked on, his face calm, though his heart carried the weight of their scorn. The villagers often dismissed him as insignificant, mistaking his humility for weakness. Yet there was a quiet resilience in Waru, a strength rooted not in titles or wealth, but in the steady, unyielding rhythm of the land. The vibrant life of Ngeleka began to fade. Cracks formed in the earth where streams once flowed, and the once thriving fields of maize and millet withered under the merciless sun. Livestock grew frail, their hollow cries echoing in the stillness of the village. The sky, heavy with ominous gray clouds, refused to yield a single drop of rain. In the village square, voices rose in panic as the people gathered. "The spirits are angry," cried one of the elders, his voice trembling. "We must act before it is too late." Another villager called out, "Where is Chief Murioki? Why has he not sought the guidance of the ancestors?" Murioki stepped forward, his expression grim but resolute. "The ancestors will guide us in time," he declared. "We must not lose faith." But faith was beginning to waver. As the drought tightened its grip, fear took root in the hearts of the villagers. Ominous whispers spread like wildfire, tales of supernatural forces punishing Ngeleka for an unknown transgression. Night fell, and the elders gathered around a fire that crackled and spit sparks into the dark sky. At the center of the circle sat the Imboko, the village oracle. Her face was adorned with sacred patterns, her eyes closed as she swayed gently to a rhythm only she could hear. The fire flared suddenly, casting long shadows over the gathered elders. The Imboko's eyes snapped open, and her voice rang out, layered with an unearthly resonance. "The salvation of Ngeleka lies in the hands of the unnoticed," she intoned, her gaze sweeping over the elders. "The drought is but a symptom of the shadows that linger within. Seek not the powerful, but the unseen." The villagers exchanged uneasy glances. What could she mean? The words felt heavy with truth, yet cloaked in mystery, leaving them restless and uncertain. As the flames danced in the oracle's eyes, the elders struggled to grasp the meaning of her cryptic warning. Waru lay on his mat in his small hut, the room dimly lit by the soft glow of the moon filtering through the thatched roof. His sleep was restless, his brow furrowed as his dreams unfolded. In his vision, a magnificent bird, its feathers ablaze with brilliant flames, soared through a dense, shadowy forest. Its wings illuminated a dark path ahead, its call echoing like a song of both warning and invitation. Waru woke with a start, his breath shallow. The image of the fiery bird lingered in his mind, its call reverberating in his chest. It was unlike anything he had ever seen or heard, yet it felt strangely familiar, as though it were calling him to something beyond the world he knew. The dreams came again the next night, and the night after that. Each time, the fiery bird's call grew stronger, its light brighter, until Waru could no longer ignore its pull. By day, he worked his fields, but his heart was restless. The villagers' mockery no longer stung. Their words seemed distant, insignificant compared to the visions that consumed him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Waru stood at the edge of his field, gazing toward the distant Mvumvi forest. The place was feared by all, shrouded in tales of spirits and danger. Yet Waru felt a strange pull toward its shadowed depths. He tightened his grip on his hoe and whispered to himself, "If the spirits have chosen me, then I must answer." With that, he turned and began preparing for a journey that would change not only his life, but the fate of Ngeleka itself. The drums of the evening gathering echoed across Ngeleka, summoning its people to the circle of elders. Waru stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching his walking stick, his heart thundering in his chest. The flames of the central fire danced before him, their warmth doing little to ease the chill of doubt that crept into his thoughts. Stepping forward, he raised his voice above the murmur of the villagers. "Elders of Ngeleka, I have come to speak of the dreams that haunt my nights. A fiery bird calls to me, leading me toward the Mvumvi forest. Its light speaks of salvation, of hope for our village." The elders exchanged glances, their weathered faces etched with skepticism. Chief Murioki leaned forward, his voice steady and sharp. "Dreams, Waru, are the whispers of tired minds. What meaning can they hold, especially for a farmer who knows only the soil?" A wave of quiet laughter rippled through the gathering. Waru's grip on his stick tightened, but he pressed on. "These dreams are unlike any other, Chief. The bird's call is not my own. Its light is for all of us. I ask only for your blessing to seek what lies ahead." Elder Kanzi, her voice raspy with age, tapped her staff against the ground. "And if your dreams are nothing but folly, would you lead us to ruin chasing shadows?" The villagers began murmuring, their words a mix of curiosity and doubt. Waru's face flushed with frustration. "I do not claim to know the path ahead, but I cannot ignore the pull of this vision. The drought tightens its grip on us all. If I fail, it will be my burden to bear." Murioki stood, raising his hands to silence the crowd. "Enough," he said firmly. "Waru, if you wish to follow this fiery bird, do so. But know this, you go as one man. Ngeleka will not be bound to the whims of your dreams." Waru lowered his head, his spirit heavy yet unwavering. The villagers watched him in silence as he turned and walked away, his shadow stretching long against the firelight. Later that night, as Waru sat by the dying embers of his home fire, a familiar voice broke the stillness. "You stood before the elders like a lion," Zuberi said, settling beside him, "yet they see only a mouse." Waru gave a small, bitter smile. "Perhaps they are right. Who am I to claim a path I barely understand myself?" Zuberi's hand clapped his shoulder firmly. "You are Waru, son of Ngeleka, a man who sees what others cannot. They laugh because they fear what they do not understand." Adia, Waru's younger sister, emerged from the shadows, her eyes bright with determination. "Brother, do not doubt yourself," she said softly, kneeling beside him. "Our ancestors chose you for this. Do you think the fiery bird came to you by chance?" Her words carried the weight of belief, steady and unwavering. "The drought is a test, and so are the doubts of the village. Remember, Waru, greatness often hides in the quietest places." Waru looked between his friend and his sister, their faith in him a flickering light in the darkness. He nodded slowly, his resolve hardening like clay under the sun. In the days that followed, whispers of Waru's vision spread through Ngeleka. Some spoke of hope, but others, led by Murioki's cunning words, grew wary. "The forest is cursed," Murioki warned the villagers during a gathering. His voice carried the weight of authority, and his expression was somber. If Waru stirs what should remain undisturbed, the spirits may turn their wrath upon us all. A young mother clutched her child tightly. What if he angers them? Will the rains ever return? Morioki's eyes glinted, though his face remained grave. We cannot risk it. Waru's dreams are the dreams of one man, not the will of our ancestors. Remember, the land punishes arrogance. The villagers nodded in agreement, their fear outweighing their curiosity. Morioki smiled inwardly, satisfied. Waru's growing prominence threatened his authority, but he would ensure that Ngeleka saw him not as a savior, but as a fool. Waru rose before dawn, the first rays of light spilling across the horizon. His pack was light, just enough food and water for a journey with no clear end. At the edge of the village, Zuberi and Adia waited. "Are you certain you want to do this alone?" Zuberi asked, his face lined with concern. Waru nodded. "This path is mine to walk. The bird calls only to me." Adia placed a small carved talisman in his hand. "For protection," she said softly, "may the spirits guide you." With a final glance back at the village, Waru stepped into the shadows of the Mvumvi forest. The air grew colder, heavier, as though the trees themselves held their breath. Each step was met with silence, save for the occasional crack of a branch or the distant cry of an unseen creature. The path twisted and turned, leading deeper into the heart of the forest, where the light barely touched. Waru paused, his breath shallow, as the faint glow of the fiery bird appeared in the distance. Its call rang out, both haunting and hopeful, pulling him forward. Despite the fear coiling in his chest, Waru pressed on, knowing that the fate of Ngeleka rested not in the strength of his body, but in the strength of his heart. The sun hung mercilessly over Ngeleka, its scorching rays burning the land. The once vibrant fields, rich with maize and millet, had withered into barren patches of cracked earth. The rivers that once sang their way through the village were now dry, their beds littered with parched stones. Children, their laughter replaced by weary cries, followed their mothers to distant wells, only to return empty-handed. In the central clearing, a gathering of villagers erupted into heated arguments. "What good are our traditions if they cannot bring the rain?" shouted a young farmer, his voice trembling with frustration. An elder, his face shadowed by despair, raised a hand to calm the crowd. "We must trust in the old ways. The spirits are testing us, and our patience will bring salvation." "But what if they won't?" cried a woman clutching her sickly child. "Our crops are dead, our animals gone. Are we to wait until we perish too?" The name Waru surfaced in the whispers of the crowd, though few dared speak it aloud. Morioki, standing tall amidst the unrest, silenced them with a sharp glare. "Waru is no savior," he said coldly. "He abandoned us to chase his foolish dreams. It is the spirits we must appease, not a man who walks in shadows." Despite his commanding tone, doubt flickered in the villagers' eyes. The unity that had once defined Ngeleka was crumbling, each desperate soul searching for answers in the chaos. In the quiet of the night, under a sky scattered with stars, Adia and Zuberi prepared for their journey. The village slept, unaware of their plan to seek Waru. Adia's hands trembled as she tied a cloth bundle of provisions. "What if he won't return?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zuberi placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Waru has the heart of a protector. He may have been cast out, but his love for Ngeleka has not withered. We must remind him of who he is." The path through the forest was treacherous, the air thick with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. Each step felt heavier as guilt weighed upon their hearts. When they finally reached Waru's makeshift dwelling, they found him sitting by a small fire, his face illuminated by its flickering light. "You should not have come," Waru said, his voice hollow. Adia stepped forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Brother, the village is dying. The crops have failed. The rivers are dry. We need you." Waru looked away. "They made it clear I was not needed. Why should I return to a home that rejected me?" "Because it is your destiny," Zuberi interjected firmly. "The village may have turned its back on you, but the land has not. You are the one chosen to protect it." Adia knelt before him, holding his hands. "Please, Waru, if not for the villagers, then for the children, for the land itself. You cannot ignore the call of your spirit." Waru's gaze softened as he looked into his sister's pleading eyes. The firelight reflected the pain and hope they carried, igniting something deep within him. He closed his eyes, the image of the fiery bird flashing in his mind. "I will return," he said at last, his voice steady. "But this time, it will be as the man I was meant to be." When Waru emerged from the forest the next morning, he was unrecognizable. The totem of the phoenix pulsed with a fiery glow, its energy coursing through him like a second heartbeat. His garments, once simple and tattered, now bore the colors of fire, red, orange, and gold, symbols of renewal and strength. Adia and Zuberi watched in awe as he approached. Waru's posture was no longer that of a humble farmer, but of a man reborn with purpose. "The land has spoken to me," he said, his voice carrying a new authority. "I am not merely a son of Ngeleka. I am its guardian. The drought, the suffering, the shadows choking our home, I will face them all." Adia touched the edge of his garment, tears streaming down her face. "You look like a warrior from the old stories," she whispered. Waru smiled faintly, though his eyes burned with determination. "The stories are not just for the past. Today, we write a new one." As he took his first steps back toward the village, the fiery bird appeared in the sky above, its wings casting a warm glow over the path ahead. It was a sign, not just for Waru, but for all who would witness the rise of the phoenix. The battle between Waru and the shadow serpent ended in a dazzling burst of light as the Phoenix Totem unleashed its fiery power. The serpent's anguished roar echoed through the valley, its dark, coiling form unraveling into smoke that dissipated into the heavens. For a moment, the air grew still, as if the land itself held its breath. Then, the sky began to shift. The oppressive darkness that had loomed over Ngeleka melted away, revealing patches of pale blue. A rumble rolled across the horizon, low and trembling, like the awakening of a long, silent drum. Waru stood at the edge of the village, his chest heaving with exertion. The totem in his hand glowed faintly, its task complete. He raised his eyes to the heavens, where thick clouds began to gather, swirling like a great gray quilt. "It is done," he whispered, his voice filled with reverence. The first raindrop fell, cool and cleansing, landing on Waru's brow. Another followed, and then another, until the heavens opened in a joyous downpour. The villagers who had been watching from a distance hesitated for only a moment before erupting into cries of relief and celebration. "Rain!" shouted a boy, spinning in circles as the water drenched his small frame. "It's raining!" The dry riverbeds began to fill, trickles turning to streams, streams to rushing waters that sang as they danced through the village. The fields, barren only moments before, seemed to awaken. Green shoots pushed through the cracked earth, drinking deeply of the life-giving rain. An elder knelt in the mud, his hands trembling as he touched the wet soil. "The land lives again," he murmured. "The spirits have forgiven us." Waru turned to face the villagers, his expression calm but resolute. The phoenix totem in his hand dimmed, its fire now resting. "This rain is not just water," he said, his voice carrying over the sound of the storm. "It is a promise that we must honor the land, the spirits, and one another. Only then will Ngeleka thrive." The villagers nodded, their joy tempered with understanding. As the rain continued to fall, washing away the dust and despair, the village of Ngeleka began to breathe again. I hope you enjoyed this story and found meaning in it. What lesson did you learn from Waru's journey? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and share if it resonated with you. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired.